how you email. I know AI is really big, and yes, it is something that has to be done. But I can tell when you are using AI to speak with me through email, because what happens is your email looks like all the other 50 emails that I've gotten.
What can you go a little deeper in there? Like, what are the different languages that are being spoken?
The different layers and challenges within the certain businesses to get talent in the door, the fluctuation of what Fortis is doing and how much headcount they actually have to really invite top talent through the door. So my stance hasn't changed. I think what I have seen is that the desire to be a good industry partner is there.
You are listening to the Global CTE podcast with your host, Sylvester Chisom.
Welcome, my friend, to the Global CTE podcast. I am your host, Sylvester Chisom. This is the place where I interview the best, the brightest, the movers, the shakers, and innovators. Today is no different. I have Dr. Nzingha Williams. This is going to be a special treat because she's actually only the second person who has repeated on an episode. So we're excited. Encourage everybody to go back to episode 24 to watch her initial podcast. But she's here today to celebrate our Black in CTE podcast series as we're recording this here in the month of February, celebrating both Black History Month as well as CTE Month. I could not think of a better guest to have on the show. So let me tell you a little about Dr. Nzingha Williams. She's an educator and talent development leader whose work bridges CTE, higher education, and corporate talent. She serves as a lead talent and performance management consultant at Wells Fargo, where she leads emerging talent initiatives, including the Sophomore Experience, which is, let me let you know, recognized one of the top 100 internship programs in the country. She's also the writer behind Rethink, a Substack focused on experiential learning, skills first hiring, and equity and career development. Again, I said this is the second time on the Global CTE podcast, and we're celebrating our second annual Black in CTE podcast series. Today's conversation is going to be special, and just enjoy it as I'm going to enjoy it. Dr. Nzingha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited to be back and honored, for you to invite me back a second time. So excited to be here.
Yeah, I watch all your posts on LinkedIn, which I encourage everyone to follow. And I read Rethink, all the wonderful knowledge that you share on your Substack. And I'm just like, you know what? I have to reach out to my friend. It's been long enough. It's time for us to reconnect and see what's going on in the world and share some of her great insights and all the wonderful things you're doing. Normally I ask what's the origin story, but in this case, I'm going to ask what have you been up to since episode 24, since we last spoke?
Yeah. Well, first, again, thank you for having me, and thank you for all that you do in the space of career and technical education. Like, I follow you. I always enjoy talking with you, and you're just doing amazing things. And so it always encourages me to see someone else out there doing the work. But what have I been up to? Well, I've changed industries since the last time we talked. So I think that's the biggest change, and just learning the other side of the pipeline, right? If you will, how industry looks at talent, specifically the finance industry and what they're looking for. I love what I do because I still get to work with students. I tell people all the time, I took a pause in higher ed. Like, I still have a passion to go back because that's my first love. But I do consider it a privilege and an honor because not many people get an opportunity like I've gotten to step on the other side and become an industry partner and be able to help talent get in the door in a highly competitive field. But it's been fun. I've been learning a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's interesting when a situation happens like that where, at CTE, we're always talking about industry partners. What makes a good industry partner? How do you connect with them? How do you find meaningful experiences for the students? All of those things. Mm-hmm. So I have to ask you, now that you are an industry partner, like, has your view changed on what it means to be a great industry partner? What's that look like for you?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Short answer to that is yes. My view has changed on what it takes to be an industry partner. I mean, I think all the things that we've always talked about, them sitting on our advisory board, them being aware of what's happening in the education field is super important. But also being on the other side of it, I see some of the hurdles and some of the challenges that they have to go through because, their wish is to, open the doors wide somewhat to let people in, but there's things and red tape on their side that they have to work through, or the different layers and challenges within the certain businesses to get talent in the door. The fluctuation of what the workforce is doing and how much headcount they actually have to really invite top talent through the door. So my stance hasn't changed. I think what I have seen is that the desire to be a good industry partner is there, right? I think they're asking the right questions. They're open to conversation, and they also have a lot to learn. I think one of the biggest epiphanies that I've gotten is the language barrier between industries. We both speak a different language, but we have the same goal. But because we speak a different language, I think we have a hard time understanding each other. And therefore, sometimes it's hard to get to the place where it feels like it's a good, machine of higher education to industry partners. And so that's been the biggest epiphany for me. It's like, wow, we speak a different language. So that's been interesting.
What can you go a little deeper in that? Like what is the different language? What are the different languages that are being spoken?
So, even how we view talent, right? And what we expect talent to be. And I think sometimes in higher education, I know we assume that industry wants talent to step on their door and they want to be industry ready. And that's true, but there are a lot of nuances in there, right? And so what is deemed industry ready by their definition is not always industry ready by our definition, right? I think we've all hit the nail on the head on like professional skills, what they need, but they still look different in higher education than they look in industry. And I think that's a really good example around those professional skills because communication in higher education looks very different than in industry. And so what I see a lot of times with students that become interns is that they haven't necessarily been able to make that connection or make that switch. So there becomes this tension in the middle of like, well, whose responsibility is it, right? Whose responsibility is it to? And so we have to find a way to find the balance of both. And I think, the beauty about higher education is we kind of have almost a little bit more flexibility sometimes than the industry does, right? And so I think what I've gathered is, higher education does have a lot of power. And how we can really make sure students are ready to at least feel confident when they're going for these opportunities.
I love that you brought up communication. I feel like it's probably in my personal opinion, probably the top like durable skill or professional skill that transfers across industries. I'm curious, what does industry ready communication skills in finance look like when it's done well? Like when an intern comes in and they are prepared, how are they showing up in terms of communication? Like the way
So we know that communication is not about it's half the time it's not about what we're saying, right? It's about how we're showing up, whether or not we are able to use the tools the way that they're intended. So I'll give you a very simple example, and it kind of bleeds into time management, but like calendar management, simple things like accepting a calendar invite, right? That communicates to an individual that you can attend the meeting or you cannot attend the meeting. And I'll never forget one induction week. I'm giving my spiel to our interns and we're getting them excited and really want to set expectation. And I was like, hey, y'all, I sent y'all a calendar invite yesterday and nobody accepted the invite for the meeting. And they were like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Or, oh, I accepted it, but I told it not to send you that I accepted it. And I was like, okay, so now I have to go back and I have to level set, right? And I think those are things that industry and higher ed can really work on together, because those are they may seem small and minor, but they're big things when someone is trying to get an internship, right? You got to accept the calendar invite. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, like in my head right now, I'm like, you said no one. Like, I'm like, how many people were sitting in this room? Like, is it like 10 no ones?
It was more than 10. I mean, I might have had like one or two accepted, but in the grand scheme of things, nobody accepted this invite. Now I don't know if y'all can come to, and I know y'all can come because you got to be in the room. It was a practice. You failed at practice. So,
I mean, this is good. I wasn't expecting us to go here, but I'm going to stay here for a minute. Okay. So for communication, because we're going to help fix this problem. They're going to come in accepting. They're going to be sending you calendar invites. All right. So calendar invites is one. What's another one? Give me another one under communication that might, like, I would prefer if you showed up ready with this in your communication bag.
So, okay, emailing. How how you email. I know AI is really big and yes, it is something that has to be done. But I can tell when you are using AI to speak with me through email, because what happens is your email looks like all the other 50 emails that I've gotten, right? And so how do I show up well in my writing? Just simple writing, getting to the point, being very specific about what your ask is, right? And that takes practice. And yeah, I mean, run it through AI to refine it or help, simplify it. But you have to know know what the initial ask is to actually, allow AI to assist you. But I can't, like, and also little things of like, going like how to frame an email, your introduction or your greeting, then the body of an email, and then how you sign out. I'll have people that just say like, hey, okay. Hey, who?
Hey, who? Yeah. And we're definitely not peers.
We're not
to
peers.
Be saying, hey, right.
Hey. Yeah.
So I have one. You'll appreciate this story on email. So I don't know if you know this. I'm also like the professor of entrepreneurship I teach the freshman entrepreneurship class at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, right? So I get an email that says, Professor, sorry, I was not able to do my homework. I left my laptop at my aunt's house or something like that, right? Now, under that, it said, this message is a more refined view of how.
So you didn't read, you just copied and pasted.
You didn't. I said, you didn't even, you used the chat GPT for the email. Okay, that's one thing, but you didn't even take the time to read it. You just copied the whole thing and put it in here. I started to put my message in chat GPT and send it back to them to, as the whole thing. I just like, that's,
and I use it. We use AI at Wells Fargo, but it's like, the other side of it is I can't send you to the business, or I can't refer you to the business, and this is how you're communicating, right? I'm an educator, so there is going to be grace. I understand that everyone is coachable and everyone is teachable. But when you get to the business, their capacity for these types of things is very short. And so the expectation is that we're putting in front of them the top talent. Top talent has mastered the basics. And this is what I consider the basics, right? You've mastered these things in a way, and we can refine them. We can sharpen them, all the things. We're not expecting you to be an expert, but you know how to send an email, and you know how to send an email and formalize it based on who your audience is, right?
That's really good. What about, I'm curious because especially the younger we go and the age demographic that's entering into the workforce, what about the in-person communication skills? Like, especially you having folks that are challenged through they dealt with the pandemic, so I'm just curious, what's that look like?
Yeah. It's tough. Like, I do have a lot of compassion for this generation coming in, because to your point, COVID, and just, they're being raised differently, but they are struggling with those interpersonal skills, right? And it impacts those interpersonal skills that are needed to be successful in the workforce. how that emotional intelligence that's necessary, because in any corporation, there's a lot of personalities, right? And so you have to be able to cope. You have to be able to self-regulate. You have to be able to have an ability to pivot in a way that still helps you to show up well. And I think they want it, right? Because we get a lot of feedback of, they don't necessarily like a lot of virtual programming. They want to be in person and all the things. But when we intentionally have, let's say, a networking opportunity, they struggle, and it's like beyond just, are you an introvert or you an extrovert, right? They just really often struggle with it's almost like everybody is in the room socially awkward because they just haven't had that practice. And the practice that we've taken for granted, with our generation of, we get that interaction because we're outside playing, and we've naturally learned how to work on conflict because somebody wants to play dodgeball and somebody else want to play stickball, right? Like all those things that come naturally that this generation probably has missed out on because of just the times that we're in.
Yeah, that's so good, Nzingha.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, we could stop the podcast right here. That was you just laid so much foundational knowledge. Because it's the insights from the other side. You know, like from industry and like some of these perspectives or nuances that we may, if we just tweak it a little more or pay a little more attention to, we'll prepare students better for the real opportunities. I am curious, as now you're in the finance industry, running one of the top 100 internship programs. What would you say for someone who's interested in a career in finance? Whether it's at high school or college, how should we be preparing for potential careers in finance industry?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, if they're in high school, for sure, you need to now begin to spark that interest. We talked about in the beginning, this industry is super competitive, and I don't think it's always going to be competitive, right? And the way that the landscape of the workforce in general, we are just in a competitive space. And the more that technology comes on the scene and we get more comfortable with AI and all the things, we have always talked about students have to know what they want to do or understand. And so I think now more than ever, it is important that we begin to fan into flame and find those individuals who are passionate about finance, or just expose them to this. I'll give you another industry example. So investment banking, super popular, no matter with any banking institution. If they have an investment banking program, it is, thousands of applications. And we have a really good program at our bank, but across the workforce, across the landscape, they recruit a year in advance, right? So for 2027, they've already started recruiting now this year in 2026. The challenge becomes, especially when we start talking about access and those who have the opportunity to get in the door, if you don't know, if you're not exposed to the industry, if you don't have an uncle or an aunt or a mom or a dad who's been in investment banking, you don't know that it's not even about them trying to keep the opportunity away from you. It's that you just don't know the calendar. You don't know the timeline, right? And so I think it's important for people who are working, whether it's in high school and college or whatever. And if you are a mentor, a teacher, an educator, get in the know. If you know you have students that are interested in the finance industry, you have got to become a student of that industry so that you can, inform your students with the right information. Yeah. And it kind of goes back to, we're speaking a different language. I think some of the stuff that when I was in education, we're giving students outdated information because we're not connected to industry, industry is talking about this and we're still stuck on this, or we're ahead of industry and they're not ready yet for what we are doing, right? We're I don't want to say over preparing, but we are, maybe moving a little bit faster than they're necessarily ready for what we're telling students. And so students walk in the door with expectations that are just not true, you know? And on the industry side, we then have to correct it or provide them accurate information to say, you know, I'm not saying your counselor was wrong, but here's the actual what's happening, right? So to answer your question, educators and anybody who is working with students, working with interns, be informed yourself, because you're putting students at a disservice when you're going off of information that, okay, it was last year's information. Well, we know the industry is changing. Any industry is changing fast. Technology is requiring us to move at the speed of lightning. So you have to know the industry that you are leaning into. And then I would say specifically for college students, I know we spent time talking about communication, those interpersonal skills, but those are the skills that's going to matter. They have got to begin to work on, because where I sit right now, I talk to a lot of students. I get a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls. Can I get on your calendar? Can we talk? And me personally, I will talk to anybody. That's my job.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for, right? And I'm an educator. In my mind, everybody can learn. Everybody gets opportunity. So I'm gonna make time for you.
Yeah.
But I need you to come correct, right?
Yeah.
And so do the work to prepare yourself, get curious, ask those questions, and learn how to get the feedback so that you can show up well in these spaces.
I love that. Wow. You really have me thinking what you said, especially the investment banking piece about exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And that is certainly one that is like, if you don't know anyone in investment banking, you may have heard it. Maybe you saw a YouTube video or like you said, no, you have no exposure to it, which was part of the reason why I really wanted to have you on doing this particular segment. Is I feel like for a lot of underserved communities, under-resourced communities, that exposure is missing to the finance career opportunities, which I know on the other side of those, there is a lot of economic upward mobility attached to a career in that industry. Can you talk about how we can do a better job of exposing, minority groups or groups, under-resourced communities that don't have this exposure to the finance industry? Curious your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think we need to start going back to our community, right? Like that mentality of it takes a village. And I think we have a lot of people who have had the opportunity to be in investment banking, right? They have these roles. And so we who have access to them, we need to ask them to be in front of students. It goes back to exposure. I think in some ways, as a community, we kind of have just gotten siloed. I got mines. And so, and also maybe even pride has set in a little bit. I'm afraid to ask this person, or I don't know how to ask this person. But we do have a lot of individuals who are in the space. And so I think we need to begin to go back to that village mentality and build that social capital, go back and pull each other up so that they know what it takes to be in this industry. I think we need to have real honest conversations about how we get there. And then I think we also need to challenge our young people to want to think beyond, again, the traditional lawyer, doctor, nurse, right? And really start calling out all the different careers that are out there. I mean, we have access to too much stuff to just kind of stay focused on those same career pathways that we always have. And so that's my initial thought as I think about that. Like, how do we expose people? I know a lot of I can't say a lot, but I know quite a few investment bankers that look like me, right? Have events, ask, can we come take a tour? All they can say is no.
Yeah.
Right? All they can say is no.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's some of the ways we can expose.
That's good. Thank you for sharing those insights. I want to move the conversation a little to your Substack to Root of 8, and I love, it was one of the articles learning by doing. That's something that is a common theme on the podcast that I'm all about that part. Why experiential learning must be at the heart of career development. I'm curious, what do you feel like school systems are still getting wrong about experiential learning?
Man, that's a deep question. I don't know if I don't want to use the word wrong because I know like there's just so many challenges
Okay.
that go into educating students. And then ever since COVID, those challenges just, become even more magnified, right? But I would encourage the education system to start doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to go after the low-hanging fruit. I think sometimes we try to do the big thing to have the greatest impact, and we don't realize like the slow drip still makes a big impact, right? You let something drip long enough, it's gonna blood, it's gonna cause damage, like all the things. And so we try to go for the big thing. I need to get 50 kids in a experiential learning opportunity. No, just get 2 or 3, right? Just get 1 and start there, because they're going to come back and they're going to start talking to their peers and share all the good experiences that they have had. And so I think we have to go back to, let me just start small, right? There was a time. So when we think about finance, back to your questions about exposing students to the finance industry, I remember I would visit high schools and they had a bank. So they just started at financial literacy. But what tends to happen is we stop there, right? We just want to teach them how to balance a checkbook, open a bank account. All those are good things. Yes, they need to do all of those things. But what are the occupations or jobs, careers that they can have in said industry, right? We know and try to know that banking is more than just the branches that serve those types of things. So how can we start a bank at the school and then expand it to more of that exposure to something like investment banking? So I would just encourage educators to start small. Don't think about the numbers. I know that matters. That's a thing, but you'll be surprised by just starting small where that can get you.
I like what you said too. And then, especially if we're going to commit to this for the long haul by starting small, getting it right, iterating, now what's the next step up? That can become a powerful process. And I noticed that same thing, like still a lot of folks who don't even do the bank part of like,
right.
Here's a little bit of personal finance, a budget, a credit, bank account, credit or something, but the career opportunities in finance that could be, we certainly can do a better job of navigating that relationship to having more early exposure.
And you can weave it into the mundane. Like for example, the Karate Kid. Remember the movie Wax On, Wax Off? Mr. Miyagi was teaching. Yeah, he was teaching him Danielson how to block. And what was he doing? Waxing a car, right? Yeah. So how do we teach students how to, I don't know, we talked about the banking, but okay, communication, right? If I'm a teacher, maybe, or just real simple, low hanging fruit, professional dress. Yes. Maybe in my classroom, every Tuesday is professional dress day. Yeah. Right. My husband and I were talking about this. I've been going to my godson's basketball games.
Okay.
And just know, I play basketball. So some things really get under my skin when I'm watching these kids play, because it's a different game now. But one of the things I noticed, I was talking to my husband, I was like, they don't dress up anymore for games. No. When I play ball, we had to, at least a game, we had to dress up. Yep, right. Yep. And what did that teach us? Yep. Right. Yeah. It taught me to show up well. I'm going to work, or I'm going to an away. It was just at away games. At home games, we didn't have to dress up. But when we had away games, we had to dress up. And so I'm not saying we need to go all the way back to that, but like, what can we use? And I think that's what like previous generations, like our parents' generations did. They were very good at saying, okay, this is the standard. And I know you don't like it, but what it's teaching you is this. And it's going to translate very well when you get over here. And you may not know it, young person, and I'm getting on your nerves, But you're going to remember this when you have to dress up for an interview. Because guess what? You already got a suit.
Yeah.
You already got a skirt or a tie, whatever you want to wear, and you don't have to go looking for something. And I know a lot of, like, especially today, my mom's an educator too. Like, if she wants to take them to career fair, their kids are, I mean, they're having trouble finding clothes to dress up appropriate. I didn't have that issue because it was required of me as a basketball player. I had at least one professional outfit. So I said to say, like, what are the things, how can we get back to, like, let's just make this simple and create a standard that teaches the skills that we need them to have when they enter the workforce.
Yeah, you're right. And how it's ingrained into other things that are not made. It could be at home, but it could be just in the class. It's like, well, on Tuesday, I don't know, you get extra credit if you show up with your sport coat or your dress or something like that. And there are even partners that support things like that. I did something years ago with like Men's Warehouse, and they had some type of program where they were helping, support people with getting suits or ties or dress shirts and things like that.
And you can measure that. Like, I know, okay, so we track it back to a learning objective or,
there you go.
An assignment. So maybe they have to write a reflection paper on what it was like. Like, now you're working on writing. Like, these are the things, and they can be embedded in a CTE course. So, like, those are the things that I think we have to get creative with, especially with this generation, and especially with like some of the constraints that we have maybe in the classroom or with what we can and cannot do. Those are things we can tie back to an objective or an assignment.
Yeah, very well said. All right, I want to do something. Okay, it's going to put you got to be quick on your toes here with this. We're going to do a CTE lightning round. First thing that comes to your head.
Okay.
You all right? You can?
All right.
I know you're a deep thinker. You're like, oh, let me think on that for a minute, Sylvester. Like, no, I want the first thing. Okay.
Right.
So we're going lightning round. Okay. All right. You ready?
Yes.
First question. One skill every sophomore should start practicing now. Sophomore college. Okay.
Communication.
Okay. We go for high school or college on that one. Communication.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. Okay. The most underrated professional habit.
Ooh, man, underrated professional habit. Wow. Timing. Getting to work on time.
Ooh. Hold on. Say more, because you said earlier something about time management. Let's stay there for a second. Say more. What when you say that? Like, what about time and when you say that?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that a lot of coming into the office is required. Right. Like some of those old things that, we all got comfortable in COVID.
Right.
And so this generation is getting ready to walk into a work environment where, no, I need you to be here on time.
Yeah.
You need to be in the office 8 hours a day. I need you in here for X amount of, and so this kind of laissez-faire type of, which is cool. I'm with it. I'm all for athleisure, comfortable attire. I'm all for it. I'm not saying suit up, booted up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think we gotten a little loose. So time.
Being prompt. That's good. I like that. Okay. You were early for the podcast episode today. So you practice what you preach. I love it. I'm like, man, she already here. Give me a minute. Give me a second.
I want to make sure things was working,
Right. But that's the point of it too, is like when you're not rushing, like then it gives you time to get settled in, into your workspace, maybe have an extra conversation that maybe you wouldn't have had, or just be even more prepared for your first meeting or whatnot. So that's a good one. Okay. Back to the lightning round. One myth about early career talent you would like to retire. One myth of early career talent you would like to retire.
About the talent. Okay. They're unmotivated. These kids are not. They're not. Always impressed. Right. And they have things to work on, all the things, but they're motivated. They just need to be guided in the right way. That's it.
That's encouraging. That's encouraging that you say that you're seeing it from your perspective. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. What career readiness really means in 2026?
Being able to pivot,
Mm.
being agile, got to be agile.
Can you say a little more behind that?
The world is changing. The world of work is changing. AI is here. It's here to stay. And I'll be like, even in the industry and in several industries, we're not exactly sure what the impact of it is going to be, but we do know it's going to have an impact, right? So you as a employee, as someone in the workforce, no matter who you're working for, you have got to be agile. You have to be able to pivot quickly so you don't get lost in the shuffle.
With that being said, in your position of working with, early career talent, how are you seeing impact, like in the finance industry, early career hires, people coming out into the workforce? Are you seeing any impact there?
Not at the moment. Mm-hmm. I think that we're still intentionally trying to figure out how we're using AI, what skills we need to have as people are entering into the workforce that will be using AI. Like, it's a tool that you're going to have to know how to use. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter where you sit in the space. You need to be comfortable with AI. And so if you're not, you will get lost. You will get lost. So if you're anti it and you're scared of it, like, that's not an option, right? So I think as an industry, we're embracing it, and we're embracing it as, here's a tool that can really help in moving the work forward, right? Efficiency, making a greater impact in the industry, but also helping our employees be more effective at their jobs. Well, I can only be effective at my job if I know how to use the tool, right? So I think that's kind of how we have to look at it, and that's how I've heard us look at it. And now those are the things that I'm telling students as they come in when they ask the question. Like, is AI taking the jobs? Is AI taking the jobs? It's not taking the jobs, but it is going to change the industry. So what used to be a good example of this is, at one point in the industry, you need to be able to type how many words a minute? I don't even remember, because it went away when I got in the workforce. It wasn't a thing. But that didn't mean I didn't know how to type. I need to know how to type. Like, I needed the skill of typing, but I didn't need to know how to type however many words in a minute. And so the skill got used differently. And so that it's the same thing, a new technology, right? Yeah.
So your message to students or to educators right now who are concerned about this, especially in the finance industry, is just stay aware of AI tools and stay abreast of,
and get comfortable using them, right? Start using them, start implementing them into curriculum where you can, where, there's not a lot of risk, and, obviously go through the protocols or whatever is needed for your classroom or whatever. But to just automatically, like, I don't like AI because students are gonna, I don't know, cheat on it or whatever, like that kind of like it. And I don't mean this but I do mean it in a direct way. That's lazy, right? Because they need that skill when they get out in the workforce. So we have got to figure out how to help them use it for what it's intended for. I'm not condoning cheating. Absolutely not. They still need to learn how to write all the things. But how do we help them use this tool to aid them in their work?
Very well said. Very well said. I know we talk, throughout the year on DMs about different things. I see the post you share, and I know you are a voice in our world, in our community, around social issues connected to work and workforce development and CTE and finance, and Substack is going crazy. And I know you have a big event coming up in March. Tell me about, moving all this work off the internet and doing something in person. Let me know a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I do have an event coming up in March, and it's going to be local to Charlotte, North Carolina. But the heart behind it is really wanting, to your point, what you just said, moving the conversations that we're having in our algorithms, in the internets, in the DMs, all the things off that and in person. We've got to stop having these conversations in nuanced settings, right? In settings that doesn't allow for tone, that doesn't allow for context, that doesn't allow for you to see my humanity. We need to move that in person. And And as much as I love virtual, like it's great, it's super convenient, it does provide a level of connection. There's nothing like being in a room with people and being able to feel the energy and what they're really bringing and what they're really trying to convey that sometimes gets missed in a virtual setting. So that's what that event is going to be in March. Is we are going to have hard conversations. I feel like I have hard conversations as well, leading with love, leading with compassion, understanding, believing the best from people. But we got to have the conversation, because what happens is something happens in the world, right? That is wrong, or people have strong opinions about, and we go straight to our social media.
Yeah.
And we're not talking to each other. We're not listening. We're just talking that. And so I personally am just grieved by a lot of the stuff that's happening. And so I want to, add value to it and create a space where people are invited to be courageous and have those conversations.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I am certainly grateful for your friendship, grateful for your knowledge, all your insights that you're sharing. I mean, really, just the communication part today, like that. Yeah, that was big, Nzingha. That was really big. So thank you for sharing. I knew this would be a great conversation. If anyone's interested in connecting around said event in March, or just want to be more aware of the work that you're leading, or internships, any of that stuff, where do you want people to go?
Yeah, so they can definitely follow my Substack, Rootivate, and it's on, Substack. And then also they can find me on Instagram. I have a CTE and Color, the podcast. They can send me a message there. I do have my own podcast. It's been on pause because if you know anything about changing industries, I need to use all my capacity to make sure I could, do good at this work. So, but yes, the podcast is getting ready to start up again. And so, but yeah, that's Instagram, CTE and Color, the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited about that, because that's how I originally found you. I'm like, wait, hold on, what is this? I'm like, who's behind this? Like, I'm doing my internet investigation. I'm like, oh, what? A whole dissertation on like everything CTE? I'm like, yeah, I encourage everybody, go back and watch the first episode. If you enjoyed this, Dr. Williams is only full of insights and knowledge, and make sure we'll be looking out. We'll make sure we link all those things, the podcast and your Substack, in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode today, I want to say thank you first for listening, and please don't be selfish. Share it with a friend or colleague who needs to hear the insights that were shared today. All things communication, finance, emerging talent. This was, a lot of gems were dropped here today. So, Dr. Nzingha, thank you for joining us. And for all my listeners, until the next episode, remember, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Global CTE podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about future episodes.